Why are guys simps? What is driving them? Oh, it's very simple. See, a guy who's a simp doesn't think that he has anything valuable inherently. He thinks that only his money is valuable.
SAR Experience.
Привет and welcome to another Vodka Vodcast with me, Connor Klein. This is the SAR Experience. Greetings from Odessa, Mama. You can see behind me that the quarantine has kind of ended when I'm filming this. Actually, people are out, summer is starting, we have beautiful weather. It's a good time to take advantage of the terraces. But when you come here to Odessa in Ukraine, the last thing that you want to be is a simp. So in today's podcast, we're going to be going into what is a simp and how you can avoid being one in the context of Eastern Europe. Because I think there are important differences. As you've seen in my other videos here on YouTube, being assertive and having maybe a more traditional masculine role here in a country like Ukraine is really valued by the local women. But how does that gel with being a simp and avoiding that? It's definitely a little bit nuanced here than it is in general, like in the video clip that you saw at the beginning of this video. So I actually looked up what the definition of a simp is in the Urban Dictionary. Let me read it out to you. So a simp is a man that puts himself in a subservient or submissive position under women in the hope of winning them over without the female bringing anything to the table. Now, there are a lot of words thrown about in the manosphere, as it's known, simp, cook, beta, and there's definitely a connection between all of them. Now, one of the important parts of that definition is there's no quid pro quo. The woman does not bring anything substantial of value, and basically that the man is subservient, putting her on a pedestal and trying to win her over, i.e. that she is the prize, even though she doesn't ostensibly bring anything of value. Now let me also give you an example, a little anecdote. In that video that I played at the beginning from Coach Redpill and his channel, he also tells an anecdote about his friend. He calls him his a fat fuck friend Ethan, but in mine it's going to be actually a girl, a local girl here in Ukraine, and a good example of what simping might be in the Eastern European context. Now, I hadn't seen my friend Vida for I think about 6 months. She'd been away modeling abroad, and then we met up and we had a coffee. Now she's a girl that, at least with me, had never been openly materialistic, always well behaved, always very respectful. So when we sat down to, we met up, we had lunch somewhere in the center of Kiev, I noticed that she had a brand new iPhone. Now, of course, she makes her own money through modeling, but I guessed it probably wasn't enough to have covered the cost of the new iPhone. And I wanted to tease her a little bit, so I said, hey, great that you got the new iPhone. Who bought it for you? A little bit provocative. And then she told me who had bought it for her. Apparently it had been an Italian guy, a good bit older than her. He was probably, if I remember correctly, maybe about 50. And he had contacted her, reached out to her, and started trying to impress her. They had actually met up in person, so I guess they went on a date, and then he presented her with an iPhone. And I was like, interesting, okay, and so what did you do in return? She's like, nothing. So I was like, so he just gave you an iPhone? Yeah, he started buying me these things. I was like, okay, interesting, you accept them? He said, yeah, what's the harm? He wants to buy me a present. And did he realize that you had no interest, no romantic interest in him? And she was like, yeah. And then he asked for the phone back. So I was like, obviously you did not give it back to him. Of course not. I told him where to go. So there you go. That is a good example of simping. Basically, he just bought her an expensive gift to try and get his way into her panties, and it actually kind of backfired, because that's what simping does. She didn't actually bring anything of value other than maybe her time, but she had met him anyways. He'd given her the iPhone to try and buy his way in further. And that is a particularly weak position. If, of course, there's nothing coming quid pro quo in exchange for that, then That is per se the definition of being a simp. And that is one thing you really need to avoid here. To be clear, I'm not knocking being wealthy, making money, using your wealth to attract women. That's all perfectly reasonable, logical to do in the dating market. But the issue is when you become a simp, and that is primarily what you're leading with. And the fact it actually lowers the chances of you getting romantic with any of the women that you're simping with. Now, there's definitely a misunderstanding from a lot of Westerners who plan to come to, say, Ukraine. It's also applicable to Belarus and to Russia. And that is, and I've heard it said by some Danish guy, you can buy the women for a sandwich, for the price of a sandwich. If that's what you think, you are going to have a very, very expensive and painful learning process when you arrive in a city like Odessa, Mama, because there's going to be a lot of unscrupulous women who are going to be dying to meet you if you think that's the way the local girls are. This is not the 1990s. It's not abject poverty. Now, don't get me wrong, there is poverty in Ukraine, but world has changed. Ukrainian women have access to, Instagram, the internet. They know exactly where their market value is on a global scale, and also that in the West, not everything is so rosy. They actually get to travel there now. They're not naive like they would have been in the 90s. Also, that economic situation has changed to a certain extent, but for sure, you are not buying any women for the price of a sandwich. If you think coming here and offering a woman a meal is going to make her jump into bed with you, you are going to be very disappointed, especially if it is in a city like Odessa here on the shores of the Black Sea, or Kiev, or Moscow in Russia. Forget it. You are going to get a painful, hard landing. Now, leading with money in particular will definitely attract and help you get a certain type of girl for a short amount of time, and that is the gold digger. Now, I don't want to hate on gold diggers. They are what they are. It's free choice, a free world. If you want to be a gold digger, go for it, and just use your body to use men, whether it happens to be, prostitution, which is a lot more honest transaction, where it's like, I give you this service for this amount of money. Now, the issue with gold diggers more is that they don't ostensibly say that they're prostitutes. They say, basically, I'm going to date you and have a romantic relationship, a loving relationship, and in fact, they just want your money, and it's not really a very transparent transaction. Now, you should be clever enough or educated enough from watching my channel in order to spot those kind of women if you want to avoid them. Now, if you just want to attract gold diggers, Connor, I don't care. I just want to leave with my money and get those kind of women because, I've worked hard, I earned my money, and now I deserve women in return. That's a transactional relationship, and it's free world as well for you. That's what you can do. Now, I think on average, probably that's not what you're looking for when you come here to Ukraine. But if you do leave with money, if you do also give away what we call cheap validation, you will attract the gold diggers for sure. So women who are just interested in your money and see you as a mark, basically, in order to use for that. Now, of course, this also spills over into the scammers. I have great video content about scammers, how to red flags, how to avoid them. I'm going to link all that below in the description to this video. Also have my anti-scammer boot camp. It will open again for enrollment, so I'll also leave a link down for that as well below for you to go and check out. It is closed. I'm actually currently doing it, but it will reopen in the future and we'll get a chance to get in. That's been an amazing experience, actually, teaching guys one-on-one over Zoom, and in the group chats that we have after every live stream, the Q&A. It's been fantastic. I have a huge amount of value for my clients in doing that. So super excited, and definitely want to be in on the next enrollment. So you have to understand that simping doesn't just happen when you go and pay for stuff or try to buy women. It also is when you give what we call cheap validation, because it's the same concept. You're basically giving, in this sense, gets good emotions, so, or a good, cheap dopamine hit. And the way that you see that the most is on Instagram. It can also be on TikTok, which is obviously gaining popularity right now. This is May 2020. That might change, might take over, might disappear, might go the way of Snapchat and not be so relevant. But for the moment, it is a platform that's seen becoming increasingly popular here in Ukraine. And anytime I look even at a pretty girl's account or pretty girls beside me, while whatever, and I look at her Instagram messages, she allows me to look at them. It's fascinating. You see how so many guys think the same way. And what do? They simp. They give super cheap validation. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so not only do they like every photo with that double tap on Instagram, they also leave comments underneath the photos saying, "You are so beautiful." I'm doing that accent because a lot of them have to be either Italian or Turkish in the cases that I see, but it's not only limited to those nationalities or ethnicities. But yeah, they basically write all these messages saying, putting the woman on a pedestal when she doesn't do anything necessarily to deserve that veneration. That's what you want to avoid. That is super simping. And of course, what's the next thing they do? They slide into DMs. That means they start to write to her directly on Instagram, commenting, and it always leads with the same thing. "You are so beautiful. You are amazing. I want to meet you. I'll fly you to Dubai." Yeah, if you lead with that, it's super cheap validation. It gives the girl a dopamine hit. She's like, "Oh, I'm wonderful. I'm perfect. I'm super high value." But believe me, unless you have something in return that you can give in high value, like say you are like a major social media influencer, or you actually can afford to fly her first class to Dubai and she's a gold digger, or what's known as an ETHOT, then it's not going to make any difference. You're just going to give her the cheap validation. She's going to say, "Thank you very much." Maybe even put that in a message too, and that is it. You just made her day. You just shown her that you are low value as a simp. I own that she's so much higher than you, and you do not have anything to give a value except for the cheap validation you just gave her. Spasiba. And she will move on with her day thinking, "I'm super high value." So definitely that is something that you want to stop doing if you've ever been doing that. Now, believe me, the guys who are actually dating these women, Instagram models, they are not sliding into her DMs. They are not actually writing the comments underneath her photos, because why the hell would they? They don't need to write the comments. They already got her attention from other things that they do in life and provide for her in terms of emotions. It can also be the fact that he's a super wealthy guy, of course, and that he's able to provide also material benefits. But believe me, girls who are not gold diggers, they're attracted to rich men because of the lifestyle they can provide, not the money itself. That was also in the video I played at the clip of at the beginning, and it's super true. If you just think you're going to buy them and they're not a gold digger, not a prostitute, it's going to be counterproductive, believe me. So you do not, that's also in terms of validation, all these likes. You can like the occasional photo, but if you think that that's going to get your way to a woman's heart, you're sadly mistaken, and that would make you a simp if that's what you depend on. So you're probably going to object to what I've said in one way if you're familiar with Eastern Europe, like Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, and you'll be like, "Connor, but aren't Eastern European women expecting you to provide for them? It's more like that traditional mindset and gender role that we used to have in the West only maybe 30, 40 years ago. How the hell can you call us a simp if that's all we're doing?" Now, important thing to point out is that doesn't mean that all the Russian, Ukrainian, or Belarusian guys, or former Soviet guys are not also simps. Some of them. And I've also seen that with girls I've dated in Eastern Europe, where even the local guys engage in a bit of simping, like she's just hanging out with them because they send her money. She basically makes it look like she's doing something with them, but she is not their girlfriend. She does not do anything romantic with them. And that, of course, is exactly the same. And she doesn't respect them whatsoever, because they basically say, "I have to pay you to hang around with them." So don't think that it's mutually exclusive. Now, it is true, of course, that you need to be assertive, you need to lead, you should be expressing your personality through your behavior. And that, of course, means that if you invite a woman out, you are paying the bill. There's no going Dutch in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine or Russia or Belarus. Now, that means you're providing experience, and you can judge that. You do not need to be bringing a woman to a date to the most expensive restaurant in the entire country to impress her. That will impress a gold digger for sure, because she'll be like, whoo, I get to take my Instagram photos, he gets to throw lots of money at me. But if you're not looking for a gold digger per se, then it's not going to help you whatever if you just throw lots of money at it. You know, you can basically create a cool experience, but you are going to definitely on dates be the one paying. Just bear that in mind. But that does not mean that you're going to be a simp, because you're not going to be leading with the money and trying to buy her, for sure. That can also be, you know, you can feel free to buy flowers if you want. I should probably make a separate video on that entire topic. It seems to confuse people. These things can be useful. They can, of course, spike emotions, but don't think, of course, if you just, you know, buy lots of flowers that you will win the woman. Again, it's putting her on a pedestal and giving her cheap validation. Beautiful women are going to be attracted to you if you are able to create an amazing experience for them with your money, and money really helps with that. But don't fall into the trap of trying to buy the women in Eastern Europe, because you won't end up with the best quality woman for sure if that's the way you lead. But on the other hand, if you just want a gold digger, just want to come here and have fun, and you have no problem with that. For some guys, it's perfectly what they want. They just think, I'm the guy, I have the money, I want the women, I don't care if they're interested in me genuinely or not. If that's what you want, of course, go do it. But in general, I don't think that's what you want if you watch this channel. So definitely use your money in a different way, and you will avoid being a simp. So I think the main reason why guys end up being a simp, whether it happens to be here in Eastern Europe or it's back in the West, is the fact that they don't really believe that they have more to offer than money. There's no way that they can get that beautiful girl's attention and interest unless they pay her for it. Now, you could do that and have a transparent transaction where it happens to be prostitution, or it happens to be gold digging, sugar babe, whatever, all these variations on it, whatever name we want to call it. Or you're on OnlyFans, which is basically where you pay to talk to the girls, and that's also transparent. But you have more to offer than just money. You have your personality, you have your goals in life, you have your vision, you have the great emotions that you can create with your beautiful Eastern European girls. So don't fall into that category. Avoid it like the plague. Don't be a simp in Eastern Europe, because they'll eat you alive here if you fall in that category. So if you would like to know more about avoiding the biggest mistakes that Western guys make when they come to Eastern Europe, so the countries like Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, and they invite out the beautiful women here on a date, I have something for you that you're really going to want to get right now for free, and that is my checklist for the 5 biggest mistakes made by Western guys when they come here and date Eastern European women. You need to go down to the link, click on the link in the description to this video, and when you type in your email address, and then I will whisk it off to you and you will get that for free. I'm only going to leave it up for probably about 2 weeks after this video goes out, and then I have something really special coming in a few weeks, but I'll let you know more about that in due course. That's the end of today's Vodka Vodcast with me, Connor Klein. If you have a strong opinion, or even not a strong opinion, about what a simp is and Eastern European culture and how to avoid being in that category, definitely drop a comment below. Love this community effect that we have here on the channel. It's great to read the comments and see other guys giving their experiences. You won't be just talking to me personally, but also there are guys who watch this channel. And I will see you very soon in the next video. Do побачення, до свидання from Odessa Mama, Ukraine.
SAR Experience.